Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. It has already been a year since I got my M1 MacBook Pro, and at the time it definitely wasn't my first choice. But due to availability of resources at the time and the cost to retain an Adobe Creative Cloud subscription, I decided to make a change. As a one-year review, I'd like to share how this change has affected my workflow and what apps have saved me with this change. So I try to stay on top of changes and new products when it comes to tech. I've had Macs, have fixed Macs in the past, but never had one as my daily computer. When November 2020 came, and most of us were still relatively stuck in the house, I decided it was time to take advantage of the free time I was saving on commuting and putting more into the channel. I started pricing the cost to build a PC, which I've done for quite a few others in the past. Supply and demand were still and are extremely unfavorable, so I decided to look at the best option for a laptop. Around that time, Apple started to boast about the performance of their new laptop. But what interested me the most was they were saying editing performance was through the roof. It was taking me hours on my current machine just to render finished videos, which brought everything to a screeching halt. So this left me with the obvious choice. Might as well give it a shot. Worst case, I'd get one at launch and return it if I didn't like it. Knowing how these things go, I definitely wanted to get one at launch to avoid any further waiting. I decided this would be a great opportunity to dip my toe back into the Apple ecosystem. And over the course of the year, I've come across a list of different quirks and applications that I wanted to share with you as a PC convert. So hopefully you wouldn't have to go through some of the same things that I went through. So hopefully, if you are in the same position, this video may save you some time. So I'll start with the disconnected server prompts. This was one of the things that I really had a gripe with up front, and it was one of the issues out the gate that I had to deal with the most. Anytime my MacBook was away from home, I would continually get server disconnect errors. This was one of the most annoying things I came across in my year with this machine, and it drove me nuts for about a week while I was traveling for work. I ran across a few articles, including a Stack Exchange article that helped to solve my problem. And here's what I did. You're going to go into the system preferences, then user groups, then login items, and verify that you don't have any login items linked to the server. You can also check your keychain, bookmark, and logins. I feel like this is something that Apple needs to work on from an implementation standpoint. I'm pretty sure their engineers can come up with a better way to implement this. The next issue I had was with Logitech and their Logitech Unified Receiver. I have the Logitech Craft keyboard with the MX Master 3 mouse. I love them both, but there are sporadic issues when one or both will just drop and stop responding over Bluetooth or even through the Unified Receiver dongle. Currently, I'm running the keyboard and mouse on the dongle in close proximity to the keyboard, which seems to alleviate the headaches I was seeing in the past. I don't know if there's a wireless interference issue, but I definitely know I had consistent issues with Bluetooth, which have been reported. I don't have to do this with my Windows PC, and on the forums, other users have reported similar issues, especially when it comes to Bluetooth, with things just disconnecting and you have to resync and reconnect over time. When I travel, I use my SteelSeries Rival 3 wireless mouse, and I've not noticed as many issues. So I feel like this is something with Logitech or Apple or both. But I feel like they need to work to fix this, as Apple and Logitech have both recommended Logitech devices on Apple's website. So the next thing I wanted to cover was uninstalling apps. Uninstalling is easy, but can leave leftover residual files from time to time. This could potentially cause memory leaks and other issues with performance on your laptop. The uninstall process on a Mac is supposed to be pretty straightforward, since applications are self-contained and technically not installed on the system. Rather, open like a file would be open on an application. This makes for a clean process when you are ready to uninstall something. You should be able to simply drag the application into the recycling bin and get rid of it. However, this was not the case when it came to the Citrix receiver application. I also still notice it running in resource monitor application. And one of the applications that helped out a lot with this, as far as discovering apps stuck on the Mac, was Clean My Mac X by MacPaw. The next application I wanted to talk about was dropover. Dropover allows me to grab an icon, shake the mouse, and drop something into a clipboard window for transport into another window or application. Since there's no right click on the Apple trackpad, this does help me to move things around with ease when I was cleaning my Mac as far as residual files that I pulled over from my PC. I was able to see what I was moving by dragging it into the window and then just dragging it over from the PC that I had connected into my Mac or onto my NAS that I share all my files on locally. This made things really smooth when moving files from my PC over to my Mac or my NAS using my Mac, especially when I was using the trackpad. When I'm docked, I usually do use my MX Master 3, which does have the right click option. However, if you're moving around, you may want something that gives you a little bit more flexibility. And I found myself using dropover for quite a few things. It makes it easy, like I said, to just drop things into a central location and move them into another application or into another folder or file structure. So that was very, very helpful, especially converting from a PC. If you are used to customizing your status and toolbar in Windows, you can't do that on a Mac. Nah, I'm just kidding. That's where Bartender comes into play. It is about 15 bucks, but this nifty application can allow you to customize your toolbar with improvements to the Mac Spotlight search. I felt like Bartender was a good must-have application for somebody moving from PC over to a Mac. Next up, Notepad. Yeah, everyone knows about Notepad in iOS, but I use it a bit differently. I use Notepad to edit my scripts and ideas, and since it syncs between devices, I find myself switching to my iPad mini on late nights to jot down ideas. So that is definitely helpful, especially when I just want to transfer something real quick, or if I want to remember something the next day, it's right there waiting for me on my Mac when I open it the next day in Notepad, which I usually keep running in the background or open all the time, especially just for like dragging stuff in as far as just, quick thoughts or, conscious streams of thought, especially when I'm working on new script ideas to give you guys content. So going back and forth between the iPad and the Mac has definitely helped me to not lose anything that I deem important and to retain some of those cool ideas or video ideas that I want to do later. Next up, if you are using Windows Power Tools in Windows 10 or have been using the split screen option in Windows 11, check out Better Snap Tool, or alternatively Magnet, for the same functionality. Better Snap Tool allows you to easily manage your windows position and sizes by either dragging them to one of the screen's corners or to the top or bottom, just like you would with Power Tools or on Windows 11. This enables you to easily maximize your windows and position them side by side or even resize them to quarters of the screen. I know with the Mac, the general resize options are either basically, full screen, which then you have to tab between items, or you don't really get that right position. Whereas with Better Snap Tool, you just drag it up like you normally would on a Windows PC and it maximizes it to inside the window, to inside the parameters of the screen without going full screen, where you can still switch between apps and still have your app row at the bottom. So I really like that. Next up, if you're used to using WinRAR or 7-zip to unzip archive file formats, check out the unarchiver. This will help with split archives for more specific file formats like split RAR formats. So sometimes you may come across an archive file that has multiple subfiles and it has a main directory to unarchive those files. Natively, you may not be able to handle that with most native operating systems. So that's where WinRAR, 7-zip, and the unarchiver come into play. It's a great tool to use, especially if you're used to using those tools on the PC. Next up, as you all have seen, the home remote works natively on the M1 Mac because of how it handles some iOS-based applications. This will allow you to control your home automation routines and devices with a few clicks from your machine. Best of all, you don't have to open another device or application to control your home automation, which we'll be talking about a little bit more in detail. I still owe you guys some future videos on that, so stay tuned for that. So what I haven't talked about yet are creativity applications. Well, obviously, since I switched to the Mac, I started using Final Cut Pro in place of Adobe Premiere Pro. But what about Photoshop or Illustrator replacements? Well, admittedly, I'm self-taught with all three of those applications and I'm no pro. But Pixelmator Pro has saved my sanity and is a great replacement for Photoshop. And Affinity has been a phenomenal replacement for Adobe Illustrator. These two applications are very feature rich, and I'll probably go into detail if there's anything specific you want to know about how I use it in my workflow. I definitely use these for more unconventional means, like my 3D printing. When I want to do an outline, I may put it in Affinity or something like that. The beauty of it is with Affinity, I can start editing or clearing up the background on my Mac and then shoot it directly over via AirDrop to my iPad mini and use it more like a drawing tablet. And then I can do my outline for my 3D composite, then upload that back into another application and get my render for me to print. So that has been just incredible for my workflow. No more using a small digitizer from 10 years ago. So if you guys want any more details on how I use those in my workflow, let me know down in the comments and I may do a follow-up video on some of the comparisons. I have to pull out the old laptop just to show you guys some of the stuff that I would do in Adobe and how it's much easier with either Affinity or Pixelmator Pro. So just let me know. Okay, so on the one honorable mention, Tailscale. And Tailscale, yeah, I know it's available on multiple applications and platforms, but using Tailscale has enabled me to streamline my workflow when away from home because it's an all-purpose VPN where you can access stuff directly from your phone with single sign-on. I can access my NAS via IP address, my MacBook via IP address, or take my MacBook on the road and access work that I'm working on via an internal IP address created by Tailscale. It uses the WireGuard protocol and is very secure, and a lot of people use it. So I'd advise you check it out. The only reason it's in my MacBook list is because I learned about it while using my Mac for some limitations that I had with other applications and resources on my old NAS and how it was set up. This just changed the game for me. I now have Tailscale on everything. I don't have any open ports anymore for some of the things that I was using. And it's, like I said, it uses WireGuard, so it's a lot more secure and a lot more quote unquote safe for tapping back into my home network. Okay, everybody, that's it for this episode. Thanks for coming on this journey with me. As always, if you found this informative, please give it a thumbs up and remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. So on the next video, I'm going to try to finish up my video on the Unified Talk system. I actually have a surprise device that I discovered last minute that I want to share with you guys that I think could be used for other things and be transformative for anybody that's working from home. See you guys on the next one. Later.